The celestial empire, or points and pickings of information about China and the Chinese. Chapter 19, Books and Literature. An odd thing it is that the Chinese, who have been so long a reading people, should remain so far behind Europeans in learning and practical knowledge. They seem in their studies like a squirrel climbing in a revolving cage, always busy without making progress. They imitate those who have gone before them, but do not endeavor to surpass them. One century finds them pretty much as another century left them. In dress, in manners, in customs, in arts, in sciences, in philosophy and religion, there is reason to believe, much as they were 500 years ago. Books in China are not bound as ours are. Their leaves are simply stitched together and then kept in stiff cases of pasteboard, highly ornamented. The leaves are made of a soft yellow paper and are double, not being cut at the edges like European books. They are read, as I have already described, from right to left, beginning at the right hand of what we call the last page and proceeding down the columns. This appears very odd at first, but the oddity soon wears away. Among the most celebrated books of China, the names of which are spelt very differently by different writers, are the Yi King, the Shu King, a history of China down to 1120 BC, the Shi King, a volume of odes, Lei Qi, records of customs, and the Chun Chiu, which gives an account of the life and times of Confucius. These 5 books are called the classics. And there are 4 other books of the Ta Hiao, the Chu Yung, the Lun Yu, and the book of Mencius, containing the maxims of Confucius, which rank but little below them. If you learn Chinese, these books must be read by you. The Chinese are fond of books and much esteem learning. No wonder, then, that they should value or undervalue foreigners according to their estimate of their knowledge or ignorance. Not knowing the European languages, they judge the foreigners who have intercourse with them by the vulgar jargon they speak, and thus greatly undervalue them. Only let Englishmen attain such a knowledge of Chinese as to be able to express themselves in creditable speech and on paper in creditable language, and they will rise in the respect of the natives accordingly. Those who have been taught to believe that the bald head of a Chinese mandarin contains as little of intelligence as a gourd or a pumpkin have been led into error. The upper and even the middle classes of the Chinese are untiring readers, and much do they commit to memory. But it always appeared to me that they valued the language of an author more than the information he conveyed. His manner seemed to be prized above his matter. The Chinese student desires not so much to amplify his mind with ennobling truths as to store his memory with pointed and elegant sayings. In his estimation, there is no literary attainment equal to that of expressing his thoughts with clearness, brevity, and gracefulness. This attainment he knows is likely to lead him to honor, for in China learning is the highway to rank and consideration. A Chinese reader will repeat the favorite sentences he meets with in his books over and over again until he makes them his own, and these serve him as models for his own imitation. Though this mode of proceeding may not be without advantage, the Chinese carry it sadly too far. It is a good thing to commit to memory the best passages of the best authors, but to do this continually, like a monk telling his beads, is to linger over the means instead of attaining the ends of knowledge. Tread wisdom's path, e'en though your pace be slow. Know all you can, but practice what you know. The Chinese have colleges of learning. The principal one is that of Hanlin. The literary compositions of the Chinese are at the same time simple and obscure, so that while nothing can be plainer than the words, the meaning of them is oftentimes shrouded in mystery. This is still more the case in the speech than in the writings of the people. If in books you have ever met with a sentence of this kind, you will know what I mean. You must not look among Chinese writers for parables and allegories, and that high, inflated, hyperbolical style which the Southern Asiatics indulge in, though they are very fond of sudden exclamations and bombastic expressions. Chinese authors have many styles of composition, but three of these are more remarkable than the others. One may be called the subject style, for the subject alone and not the language is regarded. The second may be termed the expression style, for elegance of expression is its object, and the third combines the other two. Chinese literature is not deficient in its number of works on morality, history, biography, criminal law, astronomy, geography, medicine, poetry, and works of fiction. The sacred or religious books, of which I have before spoken, are merely philosophical, their only aim being to set forth, on the one hand, how emperors ought to govern, and on the other, how the people ought to obey. There is nothing poetical in the appearance of a plaited-tailed Chinese, yet are there poets among the celestials. There is but little fire in their compositions, but sometimes a great deal of sweetness and repose. If I were asked, what is the greatest fault in Chinese poetry, I should reply, want of energy. You must have a specimen or two of Chinese poetry. The original of the following beautiful translation was written 3,000 years ago. It laments the condition of a maiden loving one in humble life and compelled to wed a rich suitor. The nest yon winged artist builds, some robber bird shall tear away. So yields her hopes the affianced maid, some wealthy lord's reluctant prey. The fluttering bird prepares a home in which the spoiler soon shall dwell. Forth goes the weeping bride constrained, 100 cars the triumph swell. Mourn for the tiny architect, a stronger bird hath ta'en its nest. Mourn for the hapless stolen bride, how vain the pomp to soothe her breast. The following piece is not without its beauties. The Country Cottage by He Huan. He himself cut the so, leaf of which the Chinese make a kind of cloak worn by husbandmen, watermen, and others, and wove the garment for rain. The smoke on the southern hill discovers the door of his cot. The hill wife, a rustic, soon announces, well boiled are the pears. The children roam distant to meet him, from the pea field returning. In shaded lake, the fish frisk on the watery mirror. The birds revert to the green turfed hill and brush flying about. In the season of flowers, crowds of men will be going and returning. Oh, could I purchase Yen Kuang's, a person famous during the dynasty of Han who retired from court to a country life, retired stone in the brook whereof old he angled. A travelled Chinese some time ago wrote a poem called London. It was published in the Royal Asiatic Transactions in the Chinese character. The following is a fair translation. Afar in the ocean, towards the extremities of the north, west, there is a nation, a country called England. The climate is frigid, and you are compelled to approach the fire. The houses are so lofty that you may pluck the stars. The pious inhabitants respect the ceremonies of worship, and the virtuous among them ever read the sacred books. They bear a peculiar enmity towards the French nation. The weapons of war rest not for a moment between them. Their fertile hills, adorned with the richest luxuriance, resemble, in the outline of their summits, the arched eyebrows of a fair woman. The inhabitants are inspired with a respect for the female sex, who in this land correspond with the perfect features of nature. Their young maidens have cheeks resembling red blossoms, and the complexion of their beauties is like the white gem. Of old has connubial affection been highly esteemed among them, husband and wife delighting in mutual harmony. The two banks of the river lie to the north and south. 3 bridges interrupt the stream and form a communication. Vessels of every kind pass between the arches, while men and horses pace among the clouds, fogs. 1,000 masses of stone rise one above the other, and the river flows through 9 channels. The bridge of Loyang, which outtops all in our empire, is in shape and size somewhat like these. The towering edifices rise story above story in all the stateliness of splendid mansions. Railings of iron thickly stud the sides of every entrance, and streams from the river circulate through the walls. The sides of each apartment are variegated with devices. Through the windows of glass appear the scarlet hangings. And in the street itself is presented a beautiful scene. The congregated buildings have all the aspect of a picture. The spacious streets are exceedingly smooth and level, each being crossed by others at intervals. On either side perambulate men and women. In the center career along the carriages and horses, the mingled sound of voices is heard in the shops at evening. During winter, the heaped-up snows adhere to the pathway. Lamps are displayed at night along the street sides, whose radiance twinkles like the stars of the sky. The difference of treatment observed on the birth of a son and that of a daughter is clearly set forth in the lines which follow. When a son is born, he sleeps in a bed. He is clothed in robes. He plays with gems. His cry is princely loud. But when a daughter is born, she sleeps on the ground. She is clothed with a wrapper. She plays with a tile. She is incapable either of evil or good. It is hers only to think of preparing wine and food, and not giving any occasion of grief to her parents. Though courteously expressed, this Chinese sentiment of the very great inferiority of females is far from agreeable to an English reader. I must pick out for you a few Chinese maxims or wise sayings but not many. For I will not weary you, even with wisdom, if I can help it. A bird can roost but on one branch, and a mouse can drink no more than its fill from a river. This comes to much the same as our old saying, enough is as good as a feast. Perhaps you may like the Chinese saying best. Who swallows quick can chew but little. Aye, and he that learns too hastily has no time for reflection and is not at all likely to become wise. Eggs are close things, but the chicks come out at last. The meaning of this saying is, secret as murder is, it will out one time or another. You cannot strip two skins off one cow. We say, what can you have of a cat but her skin? And both these old saws or sayings mean that extortion itself cannot take more from you than you have got. It is not good to add feet to a snake. No, nor to gild the sun, nor to paint the rainbow, nor to add to anything that is in itself perfect. He wins a cat and loses a cow. So does every man who, in going to law, wins his cause and loses his money. An oil jar can be used again for nothing but oil. The Chinese mean by this that a man must follow that to which he was bred. This is more the case in China than it is in England. All that a fish drinks goes out at the gills, and all that a waster gets he soon spends. This saying of the fish is to my mind an excellent one. What think you? The man in boots does not know the man in shoes. A man in his official or full dress wears boots in China, so that the meaning of the maxim is, a great man is no companion for a little one. That which touches vermilion is red. Yes, and he that handles pitch will dirty his fingers. Bad company will soon put a mark on him who keeps it. Never let bad company put its mark upon you. Fish dwell in the deep waters, and eagles in the sides of heaven. The one, though high, may be reached with the arrow, and the other, though low, may be taken with the hook. But the heart of man, at a foot's distance, cannot be known. I hardly know words that could set the deceitfulness of man's heart in a stronger light than this saying does.